Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for another webinar in our Market Access and International Approvals webinar series. My name is Ashley and I'm part of the Certification and Approvals Technical Staff Laboratories. Today I'll be presenting you the certification and approval regulations as well as the technical requirements for electrical equipment, electronics, and wireless product and device approval in Korea. Vista Laboratories is an EMC and RF compliance test lab and product certification body, and we are experts in global regulatory approvals for radio frequency devices. So today we will be going over the requirements for radio frequency and telecommunication approvals in Korea. In this webinar, we will provide an overview of the major topics necessary to understand to get your radio devices on the right track for authorization and distribution in Korea. If you have any questions on the topics presented today, or any other immediate questions regarding compliance testing and product certifications, you can reach us at info@vista-compliance.com. Without further ado, let's begin the presentation. We will start by going on an overview of Korea's certification, KC, National Radio Research Agency. We will start by going an overview of Korea's certification, KC, National Radio Research Agency, RRA, Korean Agency for Technology and Standards, KATS. The National Unified Certification Mark, KC Mark, was launched in 2009. It is the result of integrating 10 certification marks from the Ministry of Environment. As of January 2011, 13 certification marks from 5 departments were integrated into the KC mark. Each ministry introduced the KC mark when establishing and changing the statutory mandatory certification system. Right now, 23 departments and 8 statutory mandatory certification systems use the KC mark. The letters K and C are linked together to emphasize international integration. It is important to note that the KC mark is mandatory. Since 2011, the KC mark has been unified and is the mandatory conformance mark of South Korea. 23 ministries use this mark and 8 conformity assessment systems use this mark. So we will be going through an overview of the two main regulatory bodies, National Radio Research Agency, RRA, EMC Radio Telecom Conformity, and then we will be moving to Korean Agency for Technology and Standards, KATS, Safety Conformity. RAA established in the 60s and is now considered a hub for radio wave research. They contribute to next-gen radio waves technology research and create a safe radio utilization environment. They're a leader in Korea in broadcasting and communication. KATS, they focus on increasing economic growth and their platform for the evolving relationships between technology and industry standards to create more safe environments via standardization. They're also recognized nationally in the regional standardization procedures. So, the RRA agenda. Methods of conformity assessment, registration of compatibility, certification of conformity, interim of conformity, the KCID, exempt equipment, post-market requirements and incompatible equipment, and then frequently asked questions. Methods of conformity assessment. Under the RAA scheme, there are 3. Certification of conformity, EMC Radio Telecom, registration of compatibility, EMC, and interim of conformity if no criteria exist. RRA registration of compatibility. The overview is RRA registration applies to electrical products, equipment without radio frequency or telecommunication functionality. The issuing body is RRA, and some examples are computing devices, broadcasting set-top box, home entertainment systems, measuring instruments, industrial devices, office equipment, and household appliances. So logistics, required documents, user manual in any language containing overview, specifications, configuration, and operation information. Parts, component, layout, or photos, internal and external photos, EMC test report from designated lab, KC label. The lead is product dependent, and the validity does not expire. It's important that test labs are authorized and recognized by RRA, otherwise they won't be accepted. Test reports are different than the US. Standards refer to the standards such as CAS 32 or CAS 35, and voltages are different. A big idea is that test reports need to be from recognized test labs, and only reports issued by labs designated by the RRA can be accepted for their registration of compatibility. Other labs who are not recognized are not able to be accepted. Be sure the lab is recognized for standard in which you're seeking approval. Here is a sample of a designation letter. The laboratory must be designated RRA test lab, it must be local test lab in Korea, and it must be a foreign test lab recognized by the RRA. So, for registration of compatibility, the registration of compatibility continues to be valid indefinitely, should there be no changes to the product. The KC permissive changes are technical permissive change. If the change is an electrical, circuit, or functional change, additional testing is required. Non-technical permissive change, if the change is in design, color, additional testing is not required. The registration of compatibility ceases to be valid if the product goes through modifications that are not covered by the technical permissive change procedure. So, labeling requirements, the KC mark and the following certification information must be provided. Trade name or registrant, equipment name, model number, registration number, manufacturer, country of origin, and date of manufacture. Here's a sample of the registration of compatibility. As you can see, there's a lot of information here, and this information will be searchable in public on the RRA database, such as the name of the company, device, registration number, manufacturer name, date of registration, and more will be public. Moving on, that covers the registration of compatibility for EMC products. We will move on to certification of conformity for EMC radio and telecom devices. So the RRA certification applies to electrical products, equipment using radio frequency or telecommunication functionality. The issuing body is the RRA, and some examples are Bluetooth, Wi-Fi products, radio equipment, radar equipment, telephone, and modem. And if it contains radio modules, this is the certification to seek. These are all types of products that fall under certification. Logistics, required documents, the user manual in Korean language, containing overview, specifications, configuration, and operation information. Circuit design schematics, parts, internal and external photos, test reports from designated lab, the KC label, and the lead time is 4 to 8 weeks, products dependent, the validity does not expire. So, different requirements. For approval through Certificate of Conformity, the user manual must be in the Korean language, antenna specifications and radiation patterns may be requested. The requirements aren't necessarily more strict, but might require more documents or longer wait time. Testing laboratory must be designated RRA test lab, local test lab in Korea, foreign test lab recognized by RRA. Usually local testing in Korea is much more time intensive. It's better to plan ahead and see which lab is closest to your factory. Not only ensure that the lab is recognized and approved by RRA, but make sure that they are recognized for the standards in the test report. Ensure that the scope designated by the RRA for the test lab has the standard listed on the report and that they are recognized for the standards. The validity. The certificate of conformity continues to be valid indefinitely. There should be no changes to the product. The KC permissive changes, technical permissive change if the change is an electrical circuit or functional change, additional testing is required. Non-technical permissive change if the change is in the design, color, or information, additional testing is not required, and the certification of conformity ceases to be valid if the product goes through modifications that are not covered by the technical permissive change procedure. Labeling requirements. The KC mark and the following certification information must be provided: trade name or registrant, equipment name, model number, registration number, manufacturer, country of origin, and date of manufacture. Certificate of conformity. This information will be publicly accessible. On the left you have the certificate of conformity, and the right you have the registration of compatibility. They look quite similar, the difference being that you have the certification number instead of the date of registration. So that sums up the certification of conformity in South Korea. Moving on, we will touch on the interim of conformity. So the interim of conformity overview. The RRA interim of conformity applies to electrical products equipment if there is no criteria for assessing the conformity of the broadcasting and communication equipment, or if it is difficult to assess the conformity. The issuing body is the RRA, and some examples are newly developed equipment, equipment with no conformity assessment criteria defined yet. Logistics required documents. User manual in Korean language containing overview, specifications, configuration, and operation information. Circuit design schematics, parts, component layout or photos, internal and external photos, detailed specifications. The lead time is 6 months or more. Does not depend on product. Validity does not expire. So that about sums up RRA procedures. Hopefully this has been really interesting and gave you the information to get started on approval for your devices. Now we will briefly touch on KCID. The format, there is 4 sections, and the first part is the R. That stands for the National Radio Research Agency. Next, we will move on to the next part. It can be C, R, or I, which the C stands for Certification of Conformity, the R stands for Registration of Compatibility, and the I for the Interim of Conformity. This method was updated and used to have more boxes, but now it's more simplified. The S is used only for same equipment. The definition of same equipment would be the equipment type, model name, manufacturer, manufacturing country, electric circuit, components, construction function, external enclosures, and so on are same as previously approved equipment. Testing is not required for same equipment. Moving on to company code, the third box. So if you're not registered with the RRA, you need to register and obtain this code. Lastly, a product code less than or equal to 14 characters. For simplicity, you can put the model number. That covers the KCID. Now we will move on to exempt equipment, and we won't go through everything. The quantities involved in these, for example, number 7, equipment imported for private use and not for sale, you're only allowed 1. For example, number 8, equipment that has undergone conformity assessment through international mutual recognition arrangements or similar type of agreement. This is equipment that has undergone conformity assessment, so the number is limited. So it is considered quantity exempted. Number 11, computer built with internal components that have undergone conformity assets. Same as number 8, quantity exempted. Also number 2 is quantity exempted. Moving on to post-market responsibilities of the applicant. After you obtain your approval, this is what you do. So the requirements are KC label, whether or not the product has been changed. Incompatible equipment. The RRA conducts annual surveillance of 3% of the electrical and electronic products distributed in the Korean market. If the product fails this screening, it must be collected and disposed of. Fines up to $30,000 or imprisonment for up to 3 years for incompatible equipment. All findings of incompatible equipment are listed on the RRA website with complete reports of the reasons and evidence for nonconformity. A period of time for the implementation of corrective actions is provided, and this will all be searchable in the database and it will be public. Frequently asked questions. What products are exempt from conformity assessment? Equipment performing simple computation or portable computers to be used for the measurement digital scales, digital hydrometer, digital thermometer, a digital blood glucose meter, a digital multimeter or similar device, USB or batteries including battery power, speakers, electronic clocks with only simple clock function using USB or power, remote control devices with infrared communication method like a TV remote control, camera lens, cables, cable connector, cable accessories, toys, children's toys that do not use electric motors and make light or sound only temporary batteries, including rechargeable batteries. Are CF and SD cards used in digital cameras, mobile phones, etc. subject to conformity assessments? No, because they do not satisfy the conditions of the active circuit or digital device inside. For reference, a digital device has a built-in circuit that generates a timing signal or pulse of 9 kHz or higher. Is the iPhone Lightning cable subject to conformity assessments? Cables, cable connectors, and cable accessories are subject to conformity assessment exclusion. Therefore, the iPhone Lightning cable is not subject to conformity assessment. This project is imported to test defective product in the production line. Is it subject to conformity assessment? Yes, test and measuring equipment, and industrial equipment are subject to conformity assessment with self-test. We touched on the first regulatory body in this field for EMC radio and telecom conformity, that is the Radio Research Agency in South Korea. We will now go over some safety requirements under KATS, the Korean Agency for Technology and Standard. The regulatory body for product safety was established in the 1800s, and they support technology and regulatory developments to support product safety. Their approvals are issued by certification bodies on behalf of KATS. Agenda, methods of conformity assessment, there are 3. Safety certification, safety confirmation, supplier's declaration of conformity. Then we will touch on labeling and go over a summary. A brief look at what is required for all of these. Safety certification is for high-risk products. Safety confirmation is for medium-risk products. Safety SDOC is for low-risk products. Safety certification overview. Safety certification applies to products with a high safety risk. Issuing body is KATS, accredited certification body, KTC, KTL, KTR, on behalf of KATS. Examples would be power supply units, information technology equipment, industrial devices, office equipment and household appliances, lighting. Logistics required documents, user manual, Korean language containing overview, specifications, configuration, and operation information, critical components list, parts, components, layout, or photos, installation material certificate, enclosure, PCB, etc., CB report, KC label, 1 to 2 samples. Lead time is 7 to 8 weeks. Validity does not expire. CV reports are important. CV report and certificates are recognized. With a CV report, only some testing is required, and in this case, the testing labs must be KOLAS accredited or designated Korean Laboratory Accreditation Scheme. That covers the safety certification. Now on to safety confirmation. Overview of safety certification applies to products with a medium safety risk. The issuing body is CAS, Accredited Certification Body, KTC, KTL, KTR. Some examples are monitors, printers, projectors, audio-video equipment, switches for appliances. Required documents are user manual in Korean language containing overview, specifications, configuration, and operation information. Critical components